Hospital's emergency room. As we walked toward my father's emergency room cubicle, we could hear him crying. The nurse said he had C. diff. The diarrhea was in the opening of his penis. He was screaming, C. diff. I don't know if you people are aware of this. See a copy of an article which appeared in AARP ARP, written by Betsy McCoy, a former lieutenant governor of New York. My dad was moved to a room with a contagious sign on his door. He is unbelievably weak. He can't eat. Diarrhea is pouring out of him. All this resulting from such horrifying care received in such contaminated facilities. Lack of education, sheer ignorance, laziness from nurses and doctors and caregivers, not dispensing the right amount of antibiotics. This same Saturday evening that Dad was taken to the hospital, my sister, her boyfriend, and myself went back to the facility, the hellhole, to pick up Daddy's clothing. On the top shelf of his closet was his dirty laundry loaded with diarrhea, including his sneakers. I gathered everything, put the soiled laundry and shoes in the trunk, and went home, unknowing that the laundry and shoes were contaminated with this deadly bacteria. Fortunately, I had a food business for years, and I know that only bleach can kill bacteria. Over the next few days, I would get daily reports from the nurses that the diarrhea was still present. One morning, I received my first call from a doctor who was appointed as Mr. Sarnoff's doctor. We didn't even have a name for him, only a letter, Dr. P. He was not a regular practicing physician at the hospital, but he called me early each morning to tell me that Dad was unable to eat and the diarrhea was still flowing. So he started feeding him intravenously and said he would like to insert a PICC line, which goes directly to the chest, and hopefully whatever solution was in the bag would provide electrolytes. Finally, hallelujah again, the diarrhea stopped, and we were getting ready to celebrate Daddy's 99th birthday, October 14, 2008. My sister and I picked up a cake. Of course, Dad was unable to ever eat again. He was painfully thin. He seemed in calm spirits. My sister, her son, myself, and my son sang happy birthday. Maxie grimaced, a little bit of a smile. The three of them left, and I stayed with Daddy, holding his hand. I told him I loved him. He told me the same and said, "Life was too short, Bobby." I told him that I would be back about 10:15 tomorrow, because I had to move several things next door to his new apartment. I left at 9:30 p.m. About 10:45 a.m. I arrived at the hospital the following morning. Walked into Dad's room. I hollered, because Daddy was deaf in one ear. "Hey, Maxie, good morning." Maxie looked at me and moaned, "Oh." I ran out into the hall and yelled, "What the fuck have you done to my father?" The nurse said that the blood tech went to draw blood from Dad's PICC line. Now, he had no veins remaining in his arms that you could take the blood out of. That's another reason they put the PICC line in there. She couldn't even get any blood out of the PICC line, so she put some heparin in the line. Now, some people say that Daddy suffered a stroke and became comatose as a result of this. Now, they say that strokes are of an arterial nature, but we don't know exactly where this heparin traveled to. It's so frustrating to see the disregard the medical profession holds for human lives. I tried to reach a doctor and was told that he was moved to another hospital. Now, who the hell is in charge? Look at all that he has been through, how we fought to have his hip replaced. He survived everything, including the C. diff, the heart attack, the pneumonia, the congestive heart failure. But look at what a young blood tech, taking orders from her boss, her general, not caring about how dangerous these so-called orthodox medical procedures can be. One of the nurses came in and said we should talk to another physician who would now be overseeing Maxie's care. The heparin in the PICC line was a nail in Daddy's coffin, because I truly believe he would have recovered had I gotten the hell out of these damn places. The doctor came up and said nothing much could be done for Maxie, and we should put him in hospice to die with dignity. After they stripped him of his dignity in life, poor Maxie, he was a warrior and a fighter all his life. We made arrangements to bring Daddy home to his beautiful apartment next door to mine, where he would sit in his wheelchair and see the lights from the Sears Center and the reflections of the lights on the Schuylkill River. But unfortunately, Maxie never opened his eyes or spoke again. And now let's talk about hospice. What a bunch of bullshit that is. My sister and I hired a private caregiver to come in for 8 hours a day. That's a caregiver, myself, and hospice. I didn't leave her out of my sight. All she did was sit in my leather chair, eat chocolates, and doze off. The hospice people sent me a kit with syringes to flush Dad's PICC line with morphine for pain, atropine to dry up the mucus congestion in his chest. All I keep seeing are images of Daddy. Once such a vital, stunning man, just lying on a mattress so close to death. I decided to take a walk over to the post office to pick up the mail. Upon my return, the visiting hospice nurse was working with a private 8-hour shift caregiver. They were busy giggling, fussing with Dad's sheets. He was wrapped up like a mummy while he was lying in a catatonic state. It's now 4 p.m. Both the hospice nurse and the private caregiver became fast friends in several hours and decided to catch their buses home together. My sister said, "Barb, come here. I have to show you something. No urine is passing through the catheter." I traced the tube into my horse, so the tube clamped off. The nurses were so busy bullshitting with each other, they raised and lowered the bed without repositioning the catheter tube. Without my sister's observance, if more than 5 hours had gone by without noticing, Maxie would have had uremic poisoning. It didn't even matter at this point, after all that he's been through. I called the concierge of my building, my apartment building. He came up immediately. Everything was jammed. He used a screwdriver to release the metal bed frame for me. It took him about 45 minutes to get the clamp undone. Another nightmare due to human error. The next morning I greeted the private pay caregiver and told her that her services were being terminated after 2.5 days. And all she did was wipe his face and supposedly clean around the catheter in Dad's rear end. At this point I resigned myself to the fact I would now be the full-time caregiver. I called hospice to make sure that they would be making an appearance the next day. A per diem hospice nurse shows up, fusses around Maxie. The only nourishment Dad was receiving at this point was morphine and atropine. He couldn't even tolerate an ice chip. I was walking past Dad's hospital bed when I noticed something rather strange looking. He had only half of a calf. I yelled to the hospice nurse, "How the hell could you not see what was happening?" See, they kept him wrapped up like a mummy in his sheets. They didn't even move or reposition his body when I told them they had to prevent bed sores. Have you ever taken a turkey leg and held it upside down to carve the meat off of it? That's exactly what Maxie's legs and arms looked like. I told her to call the hospice nurse, the per diem hospice, whatever the hell she was, went into the bathroom to call him. It was a male. She giggled and put him on the phone. He promised my sister and I that he would be by the next day. I pulled down the sheet that the per diem nurse had covered Daddy with because now I had to check his body for bed sores. I noticed there was blood around the top side of his penis where the shaft joins the head, and I pulled the head top side back carefully and saw a hole that I put my pointer finger in 1 inch deep. I told the per diem nurse to get out. What kind of care do these bastards give people? They are hired, paid by the insurance companies to keep hospice patients clean and comfortable until the end. Because a lot of children and relatives, they can't bear to see what goes on. So they just leave everything up to these people. The doctors, the nurses, the caregivers, the hospice people, etc. Both the hospice RN and doctor never showed up the next day, as promised. I requested to have him come see Dad. My sister and I put several calls into the hospice office for this devoted nurse. We finally received a call back from him, and the lying bastard told my sister and I we were both on the phone. And the lying bastard told my sister and I that he never said he and the hospice doctor would be coming by to see Dad the next day. The liar said, "Why should I come back? There is nothing I can do for your father." Such heartless pricks, spreading the word of compassion to the world. I called the main hospice office back, told them that if no one showed up that evening, that they would be reading about their heartless nurses. That evening, a very, very lovely, nice emergency hospice nurse showed up and said that when she took Daddy's pressure, It was down to 50 with nothing underneath. She said that Daddy would be gone in a few